People think power looks loud. Titles. Corner offices. Faces on magazine covers. But real power is quiet. It works in the background, unseen, uncelebrated, and absolutely unforgiving when you misunderstand it. My name is Evelyn. For 15 years, I lived inside code most Americans will never see, protecting systems they don't even know exist. At 38, I had written security architectures guarding some of the most sensitive digital infrastructure in the country. Power grids. Defense networks. Federal intelligence systems. My greatest work was a framework called Aegis Core. It never announced itself. It never asked for credit. It simply stood watch, blocking intrusions, authenticating identities, and making sure America's secrets stayed exactly where they belonged. I built it from the ground up. I never chased recognition. I never spoke at conferences. I never gave interviews. In federal cybersecurity, anonymity isn't a weakness. It's a shield. That morning, I arrived at Trianex Federal Systems headquarters the same way I had for nearly a decade. Badge in hand. Coffee balanced carefully. Mind already sorting through security logs before my feet touched the marble floor. The Arlington building reflected the cold November sunlight, all glass and steel, polished and proud. Few people knew I had designed the internal security protocols for this building too. The elevators were quiet at that hour, and I liked it that way. Between 6 and 8 in the morning, the world was still honest. No politics. No posturing. Just systems doing what they were designed to do. But that morning, something felt off. Carol from HR looked away when I passed her desk. Mike from procurement stopped talking mid-sentence. These were people I'd worked with for years, people who knew exactly who I was, and suddenly they acted like I was a stranger. I reached my office and logged in. Aegis Core had flagged 16 intrusion attempts overnight. Routine noise. Automated probes. Nothing dangerous. I adjusted a few parameters, sent a status update to my Department of Defense liaison, and leaned back as the familiar calm settled in. Then my screen lit up with a message. Quiet night again. Thanks, Evelyn. Coffee later this week? Colonel James Harris. 5 years of trust, built without ceremony. I smiled. He understood what Aegis meant. He understood what stability looked like. At 8:45, I headed toward the main conference room. Conversations died as I walked past. The silence followed me like a shadow. Inside, the room was already full. Vanessa Ryland stood at the front, commanding attention in one of her signature bright blazers, surrounded by executives she'd imported from Silicon Valley. She'd been CEO for 3 months, and every week brought another mandatory transformation meeting. She spoke in buzzwords. Disruption. Innovation. Agility. The rest of us endured it because federal systems don't tolerate drama. They tolerate discipline. I took my seat near the back and opened my notebook. Vanessa smiled wide. Good morning, Trianex family. The word family always made engineers uncomfortable. Today marks a pivotal moment in our transformation journey, she continued, clicking to a slide filled with colorful circles and empty promises. We are reimagining how we deliver value in a digital-first world. I exchanged a look with Dave Chun from Systems Integration. He raised an eyebrow. Federal clients didn't want reimagining. They wanted reliability. Vanessa's tone sharpened. To move forward, we need to address uncomfortable truths. Some roles in this company represent legacy thinking. Structures that slow us down. The slide changed. An organizational chart appeared, several roles highlighted in red. My role was one of them. My phone buzzed. An encrypted alert. Urgent briefing tomorrow. Confirm availability. Pentagon Priority Channel. I confirmed without hesitation. Around me, whispers spread. Everyone saw what was coming. Vanessa folded her hands. I want to address one example directly. Evelyn. Every head turned. I stayed still. Calm. She continued, Evelyn represents the old model. Brilliant, yes. Dedicated, absolutely. But rigid. The role of chief security architect, as it exists today, no longer fits our vision. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a badge. My badge. I hadn't noticed it missing. Effective immediately, this position is eliminated. She smiled as she held it up. This badge represents the past. Then she fed it into a portable shredder placed on the podium. The sound was sharp. Final. Plastic and circuitry reduced to fragments. 15 years of work, dismissed in under 5 seconds. We thank you for your service, she said, eyes never leaving mine. HR will coordinate your exit. The room was frozen. I stood slowly, collected my notebook, and closed it. Vanessa looked almost disappointed by my lack of reaction. She wanted anger. Tears. Something dramatic. I gave her none. I understand, I said. My phone vibrated again. Colonel Harris. Seeing unusual behavior in Aegis Corps. What does architect absent mean? I typed back. System responding as designed. We'll discuss tomorrow. I walked toward the door. For those staying, I said calmly, without looking at Vanessa, the documentation is complete. Follow it exactly. Any deviation may trigger security responses you are not prepared for. Dave's face drained of color. He understood. Aegis wasn't just software. It learned. It remembered. It trusted patterns, not titles. Vanessa scoffed. We can handle our own systems. I met her eyes for the first time. I'm sure you believe that. Then I left. The elevator ride down was silent. Outside, the air was sharp and clean. I opened an app on my phone that looked like a calculator. It wasn't. It was my personal interface to Aegis Corps. The system was already adjusting. My sudden removal, combined with badge destruction, registered as a potential compromise. Authentication thresholds tightened. Access slowed. Nothing catastrophic. Just friction. Enough to make careless people nervous. By the time I reached my car, the first domino had already fallen. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my phone was vibrating non-stop. Calls from numbers I recognized. Messages marked urgent. I ignored all of them. Aegis Corps was already doing exactly what it had been designed to do. It wasn't angry. It wasn't broken. It was cautious. The destruction of my badge, combined with my sudden absence from trusted systems, had triggered a protective posture. Authentication requests were being challenged. Privileges were being throttled. Nothing dramatic yet, but enough to slow operations across every federal network running my architecture. I stepped inside my house, set my keys down, and looked at the 3 physical notebooks waiting on my desk. Handwritten diagrams. Mathematical proofs. Behavioral trust models that existed nowhere else. The real heart of Aegis was never just code. It was philosophy. A system that could not protect itself was not secure. My phone rang again. I answered this time. Evelyn, what did you do? Brad Williams' voice was tight with panic. He was Trianex's head of security, one of the few people who actually understood the system. I didn't do anything, I said calmly. I was terminated. My access was revoked. Aegis is responding accordingly. He swallowed. We're locked out of monitoring tools. It's demanding level 5 authentication for everything. That's the protocol. You have to fix this. I walked into my kitchen and poured a glass of water. I no longer have legal access to Trianex systems. Any attempt to intervene would be illegal. Silence. Then desperation. Evelyn, federal contracts require continuous monitoring. Then follow the documentation. Exactly. The documentation references authorizations only you have. I paused. Then you have a problem. I hung up. 2 hours later, my secure line rang. Deputy Secretary of Defense, Patricia Chen. She didn't waste time. Ms. Bennett, are you currently employed by Trianex? No, and Aegis Corps is behaving normally? It is behaving correctly. There was a pause. Are you saying a critical defense system is now operating autonomously? No. I'm saying it's operating defensively. Like a facility in lockdown. Life support continues. No doors open without proper authorization. Another pause, longer this time. Can you restore normal operations? That depends on what authority I'm given. The next morning, a black SUV arrived at exactly 7. The Pentagon briefing room was buried deep underground, windowless and tense. Colonel Harris looked exhausted. Deputy Secretary Chun sat across from me, flanked by 2 men who never introduced themselves. 17 agencies are experiencing degradation, she said. Can you resolve it? I opened my briefcase. There are 3 options. 1. Trianex follows a 90-day transition protocol with my direct involvement. Harris exhaled. Unlikely. 2. I'm contracted as an external consultant under government oversight. And 3. Emergency federal intervention. The government assumes direct control of the system. Silence. I continued. There's also a 4th option. We separate critical infrastructure security from private corporate control entirely. Create an independent entity to manage systems like Aegis. Staffed by people who understand that boring is good. Chen leaned back. You would lead this entity. If asked. But more importantly, I would build it to outlast me. The decision came faster than I expected. By noon, I had a new badge. This one didn't belong to a company. It belonged to the Department of Defense. The moment I logged in, Aegis recognized me. Restrictions eased. Alerts faded from red to yellow to green. Like a guard dog lowering its hackles. The logs told the rest of the story. Vanessa's new consultants had attempted brute force access. Each attempt had made the system more suspicious. They were teaching it not to trust Trianex at all. My phone rang. Vanessa Ryland. You're interfering with company operations, she snapped. I'm performing authorized maintenance on federal systems. Those systems belong to us. Check your contracts. Silence. Then fury. I'll sue you. You're welcome to try. I ended the call. Over the next 48 hours, everything unraveled for her. Senior engineers resigned. Systems remained locked. The government announced the creation of a new organization. Fire Grid. Federal Infrastructure Resilience and Defense Group. I stood at a podium I never wanted, explaining calmly that this wasn't punishment. It was protection. That national security couldn't hinge on executive ego. Vanessa watched from somewhere, realizing too late that shredding my badge hadn't stripped power. It had revealed where it truly lived. Weeks later, Fire Grid was operational. Aegis was stable. Teams who understood the system were back in control. Vanessa stepped down quietly months later, replaced by someone who understood maintenance mattered more than momentum. As for me, I went back to my routine. Reviewing logs. Watching green lights. Quiet work. Essential work. And if you're still listening, here's why I told you this story. Power doesn't always look the way movies teach us. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes, when you try to humiliate the wrong person, you don't start a fight. You start a system response. If this story made you think, tell me in the comments. Would you have done the same in my position? And if you want more stories about quiet power, unseen systems, and the moments that change everything, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because the most important stories are usually the ones happening in the background.